Good morning. I'm about to begin my oral presentation for my museum visit. So I have my cup of tea and we're going to chat about Layla Esadia. Cheers. I visited the museum October 7th, 2021, the Hunter Museum. It was an in-person visit. My professor is Todd Giles. The general description of the museum layout, the atmosphere was very friendly. The staff offered assistance right away, offered to even do a tour. I was the first one there, so they weren't busy. And it's a beautiful facility. The front was pretty simple, just a desk, but with the docents lined up to be of service. So they told me I should go to the second floor and view this this description of, excuse me, as on my way up, this was the Red and Black Spiral by George Sugarman. And then when I got to the top, the artist that I'm going to discuss is up in this special feature. Other notable works on my way there were Spatial Interactions by Richard Hunt. The Pregnant Whale is outside, as well as Free Money by Tom Otterness. I don't know if I said Alexander Calder, but they have some really interesting stuff outside. It was a beautiful day, and you almost had to wait in line to snap pictures because people were standing up on some of these sculptures taking photos. My artist that I chose is Layla Esadia. Her photographs are the result of a complex performance-based medium comprising of painting, calligraphy, interior design, costume design, stage directing, and finally photography. I thought this was so unusual. When I first saw this, I thought this was a backdrop, that she had snapped a picture, when in fact, every bit of this is handwritten in Arabic. And she writes on the person, on their skin, on the fabric, on the wall. So it takes many, many hours. She tells her subjects that a minimum of 9 hours that they're going to have to pose right from the very beginning. So she is a photographer, present day, and her style is Orientalist. Orientalist style, 19th century. 2012, she was in the top 20 Contemporary Middle Eastern Artist Awards. Posed and then painted with henna in Arabic calligraphy, which was predominantly a male practice. Women were so downtrodden, and they still are, that the Arabic calligraphy, this type genre, pretty much only men were allowed to do. And you see on the garment and on the skin and on the wall. She intends to pose her subjects in a way that exemplifies society's views of women as primarily destined for mere beauty. And she has several books. They had a few at the museum. It was very interesting. And I was able to look through them. Her earliest work began as a continual exploration of this tenuous relationship between memory and experience, because she was raised very strictly, of course. And in a moment, we'll see where she has gone back and has actually painted some of her art, was her old home. And of course, it's huge, and their harems live there. But when she was punished as a child, she would have to go into this large space. And for a whole month, she couldn't speak. Nobody spoke to her. They had servants. They came in and gave her food and what she needed, but nobody was allowed to speak to her. And she said it was in those places that she began to think outside the box. And one thing she said in the very beginning, I thought this was really profound. She said, I am writing on me. I am writing on her. The story began to be written the moment the present began. I am asking, how can I be simultaneously inside and outside? I didn't even know this world existed. I thought it existed only in my head and in my dreams. And she said that thought came from when she was on punishment as a child. The description of her medium is several things. It's paint, it's henna, it's photography, drapes of cloth, mosaic tiles that we'll see coming up. She paints on those, and Islamic architecture. And in a moment, we'll see, excuse me, other than the henna, there's another photography shoot that she did, and she made the outfit, and it's spent shell casings, and that constituted a whole nother genre of wartime and what she had gone through as a child, which is symbolic, paint and metals. She was born in 1956 in Marrakesh, Morocco. She is presently living. Chromogenic prints. She explores depictions of Muslim women. She graduated from Tufts University with a BFA and subsequent an MFA, which I think that's what you have, Professor Giles, Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And this is just her bio from her Converging Territories book bio. She attended art school in Paris and then Tufts University in Boston. She paints and photographs somewhere between the past and the present, appropriate for Orientalist imagery from Western painting traditions, thereby inviting the viewers to reconsider the mythology that has grown out of it. And the mythology is referring to the harems, and which that is true. Those things are still taking place there. But I think she wanted to sort of give people in the West an inside look at what it is, what it really is, what it was then and what it is now. She has used her art to expand her culture and the pictures of Islam, Arab women, the role of her as a photographer, and the power of images. Her introspection and clear intention are evident in many of her photographs. And we see her turning space into something more than just the limited enclosures of this house you're going to see in a moment of her childhood. And this is one of my favorites. And this is, I think, what is really well known for are the bullets, spent bullet casings. This was what the docent was telling me about. People are so intrigued by. And every bit of this fabric, she places these on there. She sews them on and is very intentional and meticulous with these fabrics before she ever photographs or ever draws with the henna. As a 19th century Orientalist style, where she hand paints Arabic calligraphy in henna on different surfaces that we had talked about, such as fabric, bodies, and walls. And they're the spent bullet casings. The socioeconomic conditions are still, I think unless you were a person of substance when she was growing up, which she's about my age, I'm 64, it was oppressive, isolated, and distorted. The political conditions, this is the flag of Arab rule, was very difficult, and it still is. Women are still treated, as we've seen on the news lately, how they're treated as more than a second-class citizen. In her art, she writes, "I am dreaming about freedom, and I don't know how to talk about it," because when she was younger, she didn't know what freedom was. Arab countries still oppress women. Society describes how things have never changed for women, even today. It's a complex situation between hierarchy and fluidity that are at the heart of the Arab culture. The culture seems to be caught between the past and the present. She has lived in many locations. She's now in New York or the Boston area. She works and resides here. And from her earliest efforts as both a painter and a photographer, she has been concerned with the status, the perception, and self-perception of Arab women and the diversity within the Muslim culture. And above all, with the malleable nature of identity itself. She makes no claim that she is a spokesperson for all Arab women. Instead, she just tries to make a difference. These are some of her other significant works. And this harem number 14C, 2009, this is a portion of her home that she grew up in when she was taking some of these photographs. And you can see it had to have been just a huge facility where she lived and grew up. And can you imagine being alone as a child, being banned to one room for an entire month for being disobedient? Converging Territories, #2, 2004. And then this one, I'm not going to butcher the French, but it's Outdoor Gossip, 2008. Formal Analysis, description of the subjects, combines Islamic calligraphy with representations of the female body, addressing the complexities of Arab female identity. And when I first saw these photographs at the museum, I thought this was like a trick photography or special lighting. And then when I read more about her, I realized she meticulously has written these, she has written in calligraphy on the skin of these people. It's just so interesting. And even on the fabric. Hurufia movement is what she's involved with, the aesthetic movement that emerged in the second half of the 20th century among Arab artists who used their understanding of traditional Islamic calligraphy in their modern art. And like I say, this is a picture of her working on the fabric, putting each sequin on by hand, and there are probably hundreds of thousands in this fabric. The wall behind her is fabric that she has written on. Nothing is like, it's not like wallpaper that has been manufactured. Every piece of this she does and works on it by hand. The colors represented, and this is part of the home where she grew up, are indigo blues and gold tile. Most of it is tile with illegible brown henna in Arabic script. Her writing or the lines cause her models to pose for up to 9 hours at a time. It's implied lines. Some of the art forms are European and American Orientalist paintings with hues of predominantly blues, and overall it is saturated in blues with white added for hue. The description of texture, her literal texture represents the topai, T-O-P-O-I, and that's the veil that the women have to wear in public. It's against the law. If they don't, they get arrested. Or the odalisque and the harem. The painstakingly slow process of applying this henna to fabric and skin of the model, and like I said, which can take up to 9 hours, is certainly a tedious task. The fabric that she uses is soft and flowing. The fabric of the bed sheets and curtains are soft, but have henna applied in and all around the folds. Her works are rich in texture and displays the rich tradition. The description of space, the negative space is filled with the interior of this room. There are doors, but no windows. Muted colors in the space with a sad looking female whose eyes are closed. And obviously, again, henna calligraphy painted on her body and her clothing. Description of form is 2D, women as part of a harem. And like I say, this is what this artist was familiar with. This is what she grew up with. They're in isolation more often than not, and in a private dwelling. Their eyes are pointed towards us looking, but they look pretty sad. I was attracted to this artist because the platform that she represents is so important, and her passion for what she does seems genuine, and she's experienced what she's writing about. It's felt in her work, her tenacity and patience that renders such meticulous pieces. It's not just painting something and taking a break and going back and painting. It's the sewing and the fabrics and everything combined was just, I was in awe. And I would really like to see more of her work. I know Chattanooga only had a few pieces. That's why a lot of mine are repeated, but I really wanted to put the ones in here that I had seen. There may be one like from her book that I took a snapshot of, and they were gracious. They had two of her books that we were able to touch and go through and get information from. Her art tells her story from the past, but also the hope of the future for women in Islam. It was very inspiring to me. I desire to return to the museum now. And as long as I've lived in Cleveland, which is several years, I've never took the time to go. But thank you because of this class. This little museum is a gem. And I thought it was small, but it goes on and on and on. And there are older sections and then the newer sections. And then it's right on the river. It's just beautiful. My selection inspired me to seek out the personal stories of why their art was created. And this I really liked. I enjoyed her story, and her story continues. And that is one thing. At first I thought, well, maybe I need to find an artist that's passed away and that has a lot of art. But then when I realized her story is ongoing, what she's doing is ongoing. She is still making a difference in her art and what she does. The peacefulness of the museum calms your mind and allows you to think more creatively. The only negative thing about going to the museum is that I couldn't have coffee while I was walking around. The art is meaningful to me because, like I said, it's not only a story of the past, but it still applies today. Laila Asadia is telling a much needed story. She gives hope to the women who see her art and hear her story. And not only that, I feel like as an artist, she gives hope to girls, young women and girls who maybe feel like they're trapped, they have no way out. But her art has pretty much set her free in many, many ways. Her art has made an impact on me. Her books are amazing. They're quite expensive. And it's inspirational for anyone who feels like they are living below their ability. She encouraged me to find out more about her culture and how it applies to all women and girls. I'm convinced that she is trying to provide a more nuanced understanding of her art by presenting it in multiple contexts. Most illuminating is the identification of the many influential ties, formal and otherwise, to this artist's cultural roots in Morocco and to Islamic tradition and architecture, art, and design. I just enjoyed this so much. Every fabric that you could look at in the photo just was so intricate and so precise. It was just amazing. These are my references. And I want to thank you, Professor Giles, for this class.